So let's talk about monotone tone of voice. Now this video is going to be most useful to you if you're a non-native speaker of English. So for you, if that's you, many people who come to me as a coach, they come to me feeling like their voice is either flat, that's one word they use, or monotone when they're speaking English. And many times they say, I'm not like that in my first language. Now, the fix they try and use for this is really misguided. What they try and do, often, is they try and vary the pitch of their voice more. But I'm here to tell you that it's not so much about the pitch, but it's something else related to rhythm. Now, this video is part of a multi-part series. We've had loads of videos so far, all about English rhythm of speech. So you can go back to the first video to check out the context of this video. But we're speaking about rhythm, not so much about pitch. But what people often try and do, non-native English speakers, is they try and really add a false variation in pitch, a forced sort of, hello, I'm singy-songy, I'm English, hello. Often people feel like they're mocking the standard Southern British English melody patterns by doing this. They're going, hello, I'm British, and they feel really false, and they feel like if they start doing that, people give them funny looks, and that might be the case. But what if I told you that you don't even need to worry about the pitch of your voice if you want to fix this monotone thing which you've identified? What if I told you that what you're identifying is very likely, I don't know you personally, of course, I've not heard your voice, but very likely in my experience coaching, not to be related to the pitch of the voice. In fact, you can be quite steady and quite calm and quite unmoving with the pitch of your voice and change rhythm, and that will give you what you're looking for. That will help you avoid feeling like you're speaking in a flat, monotone way. It's rhythm of speech. So rhythm is all about the dimension of time, duration, how long are syllables, essentially, right? How long do I spend on one syllable? How long do I spend on the next syllable? Yeah. Now, English is famous for being very varied, rhythmically varied. We've got stressed and long parts of speech, and we've got unstressed, weak and short parts of speech, and it's really the combination of these things which creates the typically natural English rhythm, especially from a standard Southern British English perspective, but really from many accents across the English speaking world. It has long and short, it has weak and strong, but in other accents and other languages, mostly languages that are not English, many of those languages, not all, but many, they treat the rhythm of speech very differently. So today we're going to speak about that. Now, so far in this series, I've given you some quite simple phrases. There's been one phrase for each video. And each of these phrases really summarizes a whole set of patterns, spelling patterns, that contain a very lazy, weak sound we call the schwa. It sounds like that. And each of these simple phrases is like a key to unlock the whole set of patterns in that group. Dozens of words, maybe sometimes hundreds of words that follow the same spelling pattern with a lazy, weak schwa vowel sound. So let me show you the ones we've done so far. I'll show you a little clip. So check these out, look at the highlighted parts of these words and notice how weak and lazy they are, and we'll come back to this. Connect completely. A useful but immoral label. Perhaps I forgot to survive, or simply, perhaps I forgot. I suppose it's a success. Yeah, you notice that. So connect, for example, yeah, connect. There are loads of words like connect, like contain, and many more words. And just remembering connect completely and the other titles, the other phrases can help you to really get an idea for where this lazy sound is. So this really is very often, after I give this as an idea to people, some of my one-to-one coaching clients, this is what helps them with their rhythm, and therefore this helps them to feel and sound less monotone, when they're speaking in English, because they're making these parts of speech lazier, which is allowing them to place more stress elsewhere on where the stresses should be, and you've got this nice variation. Yeah, even if they're not changing the pitch of their voice much, or if they're doing it loads, it doesn't matter too much. Underneath all that is the basic rhythm of this short and long, and one of the biggest keys to that is this lazy sound. So today's pattern is called the husband's moment of action, and this pattern is the biggest pattern. It represents the biggest group of patterns in this whole series I'm going to show you. There are 8 different spelling patterns involved here. So we have words like husband, which have spellings like you can see here. Yeah, so not just A-N-D, but other similar spellings. Words like moment, that have spellings like these. All of these highlighted parts of the words contain a lazy sound. All of them, even if the spelling is different. And words like action, yeah, with spellings like these. So very often the schwa vowel sound is represented by one letter, like the A in husband, or the E in moment. Yeah, that's the letter that represents the schwa. But sometimes the schwa can be represented by multiple letters, yeah, like action. So we'll come into that in a second. But it's just worth bearing in mind that there's no consistency, right? The letter A, like you see in the word husband, that letter A in other English words can represent a whole host of other different sounds. Yeah, the letter E in a word like moment could represent other English sounds, not always the schwa. There's no consistency, but what I want to show you today is that sometimes we can look at multiple letters, and they can those multiple letters can act together to represent one sound. And that's true for the vast majority of words like action, yeah, with T-I-O-N or S-I-O-N at the end. Most words we do not pronounce the letter I and the letter O separately as separate vowel sounds. There are not 2 vowels there. The I and the O, those letters act as one symbol to represent and that's it. Yeah. Many of my clients don't do this because of maybe the influence of their first language, like Spanish, for example, or French, or or simply any language where the spelling is more logical, right? You see an I and an O. You know, if you're coming from your first language, which is very logical in terms of how you pronounce the spelling, why would you not pronounce the I and then the O and say action, right? Or action, or something like that? It's a very natural and understandable thing to do, very logical, but English is not logical. So instead, in these cases, when you see these shun endings, I invite you to look at that as, look at the I and the O, perceive that in a different way. Perceive that as two letters symbolizing one sound, yeah, like a vowel symbol. So in this case, shun, the I and the O represent a single schwa vowel sound. Exactly the same mouth shape, the same noise I make with my mouth in the word moment and in the word husband. Yeah. So there are a few exceptions. They're not very common words though. We have words like bastion and criterion and centurion. Not very common words, but in those words we do pronounce the I and the O separately. You probably heard me do that differently. But most words we just say shun, and it's super lazy. Yeah. There are more coaching tips I gave you about how to make sure you're doing this, and it involves connecting the 2 consonants together. So look back to the previous, some of the previous videos in the series to see these coaching tips. But let me jump into some sentences where you can really hear this rhythm of speech coming out. So, for example, here we go. The year 2007 was an important moment for music. The year 2007 was an important moment for music. I don't say, and this might sound a bit more monotone, or at least your perception of monotone, you know, rhythmically monotone. With no schwa, it would sound like this. The year 2007 was an important moment for music. I'm having to use extra brain power to do this, and you'll be doing the same thing if you're a non-native English speaker for doing the opposite, for making them lazy, but we just have to kind of slow down and do your best. So again, if it's more monotone, if I'm not using a schwa vowel sound, the year 2007 was an important moment for music. Yeah, I'm too much so I'm raising up the profile, the obviousness of those syllables, which should be down there, should be lazier, should be hidden away almost. Thousand, moment, important, significant. And here's the next sentence. So we don't take cash payments for diamonds of significant value. I'm sorry, we don't take cash payments for diamonds of significant value. We don't take cash payments for diamonds of significant value. Just tune into the rhythm of speech, yeah? We don't take cash payments for diamonds of significant value. Again, if it was more monotone, it would sound like we don't take cash payments for diamonds of significant value. And you hear it alters the speech, it just sounds less natural and might make you less understood as well. So if I take a word like husband, there are many more words like husband, but also we have exceptions. For example, demand or command, yeah? Or even like an ENT example would be like to relent, yeah? We stress those parts of the word, and very often, as I described in the previous video, the stress and the schwa go hand in hand. So those parts of the words, demand, are stressed and they are not lazy. Very different to husband, yeah? Husband is the pattern, demand is the exception, yeah? Another one for moment, moment is the pattern, moment and establishment and government. But then we have words like comment. You hear that? The ca is the stressed syllable, the ment is not stressed. But can you hear? I'm not saying comment, comment. I don't do that, right? Comment. I don't use a schwa. It's an exception. I say comment, comment. Yeah? So temporarily, for that particular word, my rhythm sounds more monotone, you know, if we want to use that term, more flat. More regular or regular rhythm of speech, comment. That's an exception. But there are so many words like husband, moment, and action that it's worth bearing in mind this whole set of patterns. Just for now, remember, I'm sure you won't forget, this phrase, the husband's moment of action, and that's a good way to just start to train your unconscious mind to look out for more words like them. And then you might just over time, collect more words that belong in this group. So if you want some resources with many more examples just like these, and exceptions, sentences and words, then go to my website. It includes audio too. So click on the link in the description below, which will take you straight to the resources from this lesson, and there are more available for the other lessons too. The next video is going to be released very soon indeed, so stay subscribed with that bell notification so you don't miss it. And finally, if you need any extra help or just want to explore more generally, go to accent.coach for all you need. See you in the next one.